Hi, I'm Carrie Penny, and on this episode of Secret Heart Broadcasting, I'll be talking to Linda Olsen. She's a longtime Calgary news anchor. If you're in my city, you would know her, because after 36 years on air, she's recently retired, has taken a break, and is now embarking on a new career that's true to who she is. So she's kind and compassionate, she values connection, and she's the kind of person you meet and you think, that person just shines. If you're wondering how she did it, I have the answers. Talking to Linda Olsen, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Secret Heart Broadcasting. And today I am thrilled to be speaking with Linda Olsen, one of the loveliest women in show business today. Linda Olsen is an award-winning journalist and proud born and raised Calgarian. Calgary is the city we live in. And Linda was on air at the news desk for an incredible 36 years before taking a pause and now reappearing as the host of her own radio talk show. I am curious, Linda, to talk with you about, life after retirement. But mostly I have to say, looking at you, you've always had this inner radiance. And I remember someone saying about Meryl Streep that she was illuminated from within and looked like she swallowed a light bulb. And I think you have that same glow, which has not diminished over the years. So welcome to the podcast. And can you tell me a little bit about, how you just look timeless and also like you're really enjoying life. So anyway, a whole bunch of questions right off the top. Welcome to the show. And tell me, what is your secret? Let's begin there.
Thank you so much. I am absolutely humbled. And first, I have to say, I'm so thrilled to do this with you, Carrie.
Oh,
I have known you a little bit, but mostly from watching you on TV years ago, too, when I was just starting out in my career. And I loved what you did. I just thought you looked fabulous and had great energy. And as I was kind of embarking on my career, I thought that would be really great job too. So I've long admired the women who I've worked alongside and who went before me. And in terms of how I present myself, I think, I'm very humbled. It's not intentional. I feel grateful for the platform that I've had, the job that I've had, the great family that I've been surrounded by. I try to just take care of myself. I don't do a super good job of that. There's always health issues, especially as you get into your 60s, which I'm very happy to talk about. So I'm always learning something about being better at looking after myself. But I think inherently, I just really, truly care about people. Everybody from all walks of life, from every job, from every role. I just have always felt that everybody is a significant part of our journey in life. So I just try to be kind and friendly and appreciative of all that I've had. And then shout out to my mom and her mom, because they have great genes. So I'll take some of the the skin from them, because I don't do anything amazing. I use Dove soap and a few other products to help with the wrinkles, but it's genes. So I'll take that.
Well, I think genes, I have the same thing, a long line of women who just, had this glow. But I think when you mentioned the kindness, which I also was thinking compassion and curiosity, I think there's something about that in terms of lighting us up from within, because, being kind is its own reward. And I have to say, in the newsroom, when we worked together, which was a long time ago, and you mentioned that we didn't know each other well, but we knew of each other, a newsroom is not a very kind environment. It is high stakes and, pointy and sharp.
It absolutely can be. And I, as you mentioned, was a journalist, as a reporter and producer and anchor for 36 years. So I saw lots of different dynamics in different newsrooms. I was only in really 3 newsrooms. My first job was in Saskatoon at STV. It was STV then, is now a global station. And then I came to Calgary, and I was at what was then CFCN, which is now CTV Calgary. And then for almost 30 years, I was at, which is Global Calgary now. So while I've seen lots of different people come and go and different dynamics, I've really only been in those 3 newsrooms. But I will say that what you said is 100% accurate. but there's so much more to it than that, that you're also surrounded by amazing, dynamic, smart, kind people. There's all kinds of people in the world. And if you get a mix of people in a newsroom, you're going to get all kinds of people too. And for the most part, it works. You need the drive, you need the energy, you need the person who will go through a brick wall. But then you need the people who sit back and regroup and say, okay, let's take a pause and remember our compassion. You need all kinds, because we're telling the people's stories. So there's all kinds of things that are happening. So all those voices are important, as long as the dynamic works and we can respect each other and get along. And as you said, that compassion, I think, kindness, yes, but mostly compassion and empathy. That's a big part of journalism too. We're telling stories, but for me, it was always important to pause and think about the people behind the story, because in a lot of cases, it can help somebody. It can reshape their life. It can raise awareness of a cause. It can comfort them. There's a lot of good things that journalism can do. Sometimes people share a story and it can have consequences too. So for me, I was always very mindful of the execution of the story, how we wrote it, how we presented it. Some of the language around it can add different dynamics to it, or make it inflammatory, or not as impactful as it should be. So all of those considerations were really important to me, and I think for the most part, for the journalists that I've worked with over the years.
Mm-hmm. I will say there is a humanity about you, and not that there isn't about everyone, although I think that's what I'm implying. Yeah, I think it showed that you actually listened and cared and directed a story a different way that wasn't sensational, that was very human. And that had a resonance, which, maybe I attribute your career success to that. You really did bring humanity to a world that could be quite sensational.
Thank you for pointing that out. I think that's who I am. So I think that's part of who I am. But also, it was just how I thought journalism should be done. And I worked alongside people who were way better at certain things than I was, and I would still learn so much from them, especially some of the younger ones. I'd say, walk me through this interview and how would you handle this? Because I have my way of doing interviews. And I used to say years ago when Larry King was on, I loved watching Larry King and Phil Donahue, the first iteration of Phil Donahue before daytime TV got a little crazy, because it was really intellectual and it was about letting people have their say. Even if they were the most controversial guest, I always tried to bring that curiosity to the interviews rather than being angry on behalf of myself or on behalf of an audience. I just thought, interesting. That's interesting. Tell me more. So that's kind of how I live my life, is rather than being confrontational and engaging and being angry, it's just listen and say, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. I might not agree, but let's have the dialogue. So that was kind of my interview style. And sometimes it works, sometimes especially in high-paced news, and sometimes some of the people that you're interviewing, you have to be a little more, not aggressive, but just
direct,
yeah, and follow up and push a little harder. And that wasn't always my strength. So I learned a lot from a lot of other people too, and continue to learn. We can talk more about my transition into radio, where I've had a lovely person helping me learn the ropes. I think she was supposed to help me for the first 2 weeks, and more like 2 months. I still don't understand. So I love learning as we go. But I do try to have that compassion and that opportunity just to listen and learn from people. I think that's a big part of the way I've done storytelling.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's back in those early years when we didn't know each other well. Maybe that's the frequency that we shared. And I have to say, speaking of your kindness and compassion, I was pregnant. I was having my daughter like 24 years ago and had to have an emergency C-section. And I'm waiting and panicked. And the phone in the hospital room rings. And it's Linda Olsen telling me everything's going to be okay. That is just... I will never forget that. I don't know how, well, of course you're a reporter. That's how you got the number and everything. But it was like this calm, loving voice telling me at a very high stakes time for me, it's going to be okay. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, I've been through it. I had 3 C-sections with my kids, and it's it's scary. There's a lot that uncertainty is challenging. So if there's people who can support you and stand with you, then I think that's important. We lean on those people, right? Even if it's people we don't know well, it's just that voice that says, you know what, I'm with you, and it's going to be okay.
To me, that's been one of the gifts of getting older, is that you accumulate knowledge, and then when appropriate, you can support people or help out. And I'm not talking about reaching in and saving and doing the work for people, but you can be kind of this wise woman. And I think I'm just at the edge of that in my life. Like, wow, this could actually be great being a wise woman.
Isn't that a great realization? And I'm glad that you said that and put it in those words, because that's how I feel the last few years. And I've been thinking a lot about it because it's not really a transition from the way I look and the way I present myself. And I'm in my 30s and 40s and even doing okay in my 50s. But it seems into my 60s, it's like there's just a switch that's flipped. It's less about the outward presentation, and it's more about experiences and what I feel like I can share with people if they want to. I don't go around preaching. I think I just feel more confidence in my experiences and my voice. And if people find that helpful, when you echo back what someone's saying to you, and you can just let it sit and breathe, or you can share stories as well and identify with what someone's been through. And that it's probably quite a natural transition as you get a little bit older and into your 60s. But I'm really embracing that time now. It's just feeling maybe there's a bit of wisdom that comes with experience.
That's a surprise comfort, because I think we're in a society, and maybe at the end of women were expected, and you and I were, there weren't that many women in the newsroom at the time. I think there's parity now, more or less. And it wasn't like, we were the only ones, but it was we certainly weren't the majority. And I think there was certainly an expectation that women look a certain way, an expectation that wasn't placed on men in the same way. Did you find that?
It's interesting because it was never imposed on me. It might have been self-imposed. And I remember being in SAIT back in 1986, in my first year, and sitting next to my girlfriend. We went through school together, who's still one of my best friends. And I remember looking at each other, because I had this long blonde hair down to here because I didn't have enough money to get haircuts. So I would just trim my bangs for $5. And I had this long straight hair, like $5 a month. That's all I need. And we looked at each other and thought, do we have to get our haircut? Because we thought, the anchor bob, right? You have to look really professional. That was our biggest concern. So I think it's there. But the other interesting thing that I've noticed over the years is I look back at old footage of myself. Like I have old pictures that pop up. And when I left the anchor desk at Global, and they did a look back at my career, and they had all this old video. And I thought, yeah, I really fit in with the anchors of the day. Like there was a look, right? I had the short hair and the big shoulders at one time, and then the bob for many years. And so maybe it was just self-imposed that I thought that's how I should look. And the other thing is, fair enough that the goal is to be distracting. So it's to be fashionable enough that you don't stand out as being, what on earth are they wearing? You don't want to draw attention, but it's not your place, I feel, to be the latest in fashion, to be leading the trends, because it's not about what you see on me. It's about the story that I'm telling you. So that's why sometimes I say I tried to just fly under the radar as much as I could, because I didn't want it to be about me. And my standard was to be pleasant enough looking that you kind of looked past that you were comfortable enough to welcome me into your home and listen, but to listen to what I'm saying and not necessarily take note of hairstyle or makeup style, too much makeup, not enough makeup, just to be not distracting. So I don't know where that sits on the bar of fashion, but that was kind of my goal. But going back to your question, yeah, it wasn't pushed on me or imposed on me. We did have consultants over the years who would step in from time to time and help us with things that looked good on camera, certain hairstyles, the way you do your makeup, highlighting certain patterns and things that are distracting. So you learn some of those little techniques about, because as we are today, people are seeing you like this, and you want them to listen to your voice and look at your eyes and how your face is also telling the story without being distracted by everything else. So it's there, it's part of it, um, but it wasn't, at least for me, it wasn't a huge part of the day to day concern. Although one news director called me into his office once and say, "How do you feel about that jacket?" So I think one or two people had probably phoned in and made comments of I think it was red plaid or something like that. So you'll learn.
You talked a bit about this kind of inherent wisdom. Like, I think the idea to fly under the radar, to be compassionate, to be curious. Was that something that you learned as a child? And tell me a little bit about you growing up. Little Linda with the long hair.
I had a wonderful childhood. I mean, there's ups and downs in everybody's life, absolutely, and I you learn that as well as you get older. And my mom gave me that advice years ago too, because we had my brother had uh, a lot of accidents, and it just ended up in the hospital, and just different things that happen in people's lives, and you just feel like everybody has moments like, why us? It just seems like it happens to some families more than others. Um, so I remember those moments that stuck with me that she reminded me at a young age. And I agree now that, behind the curtain, everybody has things in their life that are challenging. So uh, I don't think anybody's life growing up was perfect, but I have wonderful memories of most amazing parents. And I am the youngest of four, three older brothers. So
Oh, wow. So you were raised by wolves.
100%. So I always said, I can take a joke 'cause I have three older brothers. Like, I am not the princess, although I was kind of treated like the princess, but you don't have to protect me from much because I just wanted to keep up with my brothers. So I was hanging out with them. I was chasing them on the ski hill, and, they'd give me their leftover skis. So I was way ahead of my age and time and things. Um, that maybe I shouldn't have been. I don't mean I got into trouble, but in terms of skiing fast and things like that, just because I wanted to chase my brothers and keep up with them. So I had that dynamic, and we're all great friends today, and I love them all. Um, so yeah, I have wonderful memories of my childhood. All good, all good. Um, but my parents, I think, in hindsight now, and my kids are older too, and on the path to looking at having their own families too. So I start thinking about that and how you shape those young lives. And some of the things that my parents did, I mean, they absolutely shaped my life, but some of the things that they said to me have stayed with me forever, and how they raised me. And my dad said to me, just be good to each other every day. And it was real and it was true. And he said it often, and it stuck with me. And I now, in fact, have a sweatshirt that my kids had made for me for my 60th birthday that says, just be good to each other. And then on the arm, it says my kids' names and a little heart so that I can go like this and say, my kids are on my heart. So I love it. And it's true. It's even if there's conflict, even if you disagree, there's just really no need to take it out on somebody else. So maybe that's where that comes from as a child. So even if it wasn't intentional, I'm going to try and be a nice person and try to be nice to these people. That's just my default, is to listen, understand. I mean, I have my moments for sure. I'm no angel for sure. I can get angry and frustrated and roll my eyes at people driving or all those things. But I just try to lead with kindness first. And it was maybe somewhat intentional, but also that's who I am.
Thanks for listening and watching Secret Heart Broadcasting. Do you know we also have a newsletter? You can subscribe by going to secretheartbroadcasting.com, or the link is also in the bio. It comes out once a month. There's information that you won't hear on the episode, including tips from our guests, and it's a great Saturday morning read. You talked about your dad. Did your mom instill any kind of, words of wisdom for you? always very interested in the maternal line. So,
I have a wonderful relationship with my mom. Well, both my parents. My dad has passed, and I miss him every day. I talk to him every day and kiss his picture every day, and he's with me. And my mom is 92 years young and amazing and fabulous and so smart and so sharp, way sharper than I am. She remembers everything. She reads articles and tells me about articles, and you should read this. And she's just really, really sharp and wise. So I'm so grateful for that relationship. And in my new career path now, I get to spend a lot more time with her. So I'm grateful for that. But going back to how she influenced my life, she had several careers. She started as a nurse. They immigrated from Denmark in the 50s, post-war, to come help build the West. And my dad was an electrician with very little English, 5 words, I think they said. And my mom knew English and was a nurse. And they came, and she would look after my brother, who was a year at the time, during the day. And then she'd take him on the bus and meet my dad at his job site and translate all the words that he needed translated to get on with the day. Then she'd go home, then he'd come home, and then she'd go work the night shift at the old general hospital. And you think about, a lot of people and immigrants too who've come here and worked so hard and helped shape the country. So she was a nurse and then decided she wanted to spend more time with her family and went into real estate and did very well there, was a high achiever. And then that was a lot of weekends. So then she went into Mary Kay Cosmetics. So yes, she was a Mary Kay lady, had pink cars and jewelry and all kinds of fabulous stuff. But when she was in her real estate years in the 70s, she was big on power of positive thinking. And so she started sharing that with us. And I just remember her explaining the concept to me as a child, because I think I was in elementary school and I probably said something like, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I can't do that." And she said, "Don't say that, because your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference. So it will feed it information to meet that narrative." She probably didn't use those big words back then, but she was trying to say, tell yourself, I can't do this yet, but I will get there. And to be positive and to feed your mind the things that you want to see happen. And I was a child in elementary school, and I remember that. And so I'm sure that that helped kind of shape who I am and how I think, and just not being a negative, cynical person, because your mind is a very powerful tool. So we see athletes do it, right? They visualize their next move and then follow through. So feed your mind the messages and the life that you want to lead. And it doesn't always end up perfectly, but it'll get you on the right path.
Yep, I agree. And what was interesting hearing you too, my mom worked at the General Hospital, and my mom sold in her later career this brand of cosmetic. It was Canadian, called Beauty Counselor. So I had a working mom, and we have some overlap there. Well, I wonder if they knew each other. Don't you wish you could rewind the videotape and see where lives have intersected?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
One of the questions I had going back to career was in broadcasting, there seems to be a thirst to, like, you start in a small market, you move to a medium market, you move to a large market, maybe you get to America. And I know I'm talking back in the day, things have certainly changed in terms of, what the pinnacle would be. But you stayed in Calgary. Did you have an opportunity to move to Toronto or Vancouver? And it sounds like your family was in Calgary, so there was a real desire for you to be here.
I started in Saskatoon, as I mentioned, and I was only there for 6 months. And then a maternity leave position came up at what is now CTV Calgary. So I jumped on it I was a little hesitant because I had a full-time job in Saskatoon, but I wasn't married. I was dating the man who went on to become my husband and the father of my kids. So, that was part of it, but I knew I was just starting my career, and I knew that I didn't want to just follow somebody that I was dating, right? It was about getting back home, and it was about taking a chance on an opportunity. So I took that job, and then it ended up working out and being, they offered me full-time employment. So I was there for 6.5, almost 7 years. So I was really entrenched in Calgary and I was home and the opportunity was here. And then in those years when I was at CTV, I did get married and started having a family. So I had thought about looking elsewhere over the years just to see if I could take the next step in my career when you start planning ahead. And I'm not sure that I ever had a great long term plan. I knew I wanted to report and anchor, do a little bit of both, and probably at some point be on the main newscast. But the work itself is very similar on all the shows. That's what I always believed is you have a higher profile and really great opportunities when you're kind of on the primary newscast. And I always enjoyed that, but I enjoyed the other newscasts just as much, doing early mornings and late nights, and I did weekends sometimes. So the work itself as a reporter and an anchor is similar. It's just a different platform and profile. So at some point, I'm sure I aspired to be the main anchor on the 6 o'clock news. But I was just really happy to be back in Calgary. I did have opportunities. I interviewed in a couple of places, had opportunities in somewhere in the Midwest. I think it was Minneapolis and then Texas. And I started thinking about, at this point, I had my kids, right? I had 3 kids, and it would have been a great career opportunity. But I started thinking, what will be different? Higher profile, more salary, opportunity to grow in my career and maybe get to network level at some point. But the other thing was I knew it would be longer days. I'm not coming in with any seniority. I'm coming in, I'm going to be longer days. I have 3 kids who were young, even though my husband said, no problem, it's okay, I'll stay home and look after the kids. I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to be as present as I could with them. And over the years, there were even times where I took a piece of paper and I wrote out my shift and the number of hours I would actually be with my kids and compared it to other opportunities. So for me personally, I really just wanted to be around my kids as much as possible. I even said that to my employer at the time when we were looking at if I was going to do the 5 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news. They were making some shifts. And I said, however you feel to best utilize me and what I bring to the show. I said, career wise, I would love to do the 6 o'clock news. Family wise, I would love to do the 5 o'clock news. So wherever you want me. And it was interesting because you have to put ego aside and say, this isn't this moment in time to reach for the stars in my career. I just really want to be around my kids. And so I worked every iteration. I worked part-time doing just noon for just 4 hours a day when the kids were in school. And I worked late night for many years from just 8 to midnight. I worked part-time. They allowed me that. And so the kids were getting ready for bed and going to bed. So I was available all day to volunteer at school and pick them up. And so those are the choices that I made, just to spend as much time as I could with them. And there's still times where I think it would have been nice to be home full time, and there was things that I missed, but I'm grateful for the career I had. And I feel like, and I hope that my kids are proud of the work that I've done.
Well, you answered one of my questions was about how did you manage to raise a family and have a career? Because that's a balancing act for every woman. It doesn't, even if you have decided to stay at home and raise your kids, there's cost. It's a cost benefit analysis, and you have to do what feels right for your soul. And so you again had that kind of, what I might refer to as secret heart. You were just following your internal guidance and trying to make it work, and know that being present for your kids was really important to you. Yeah. How old are your kids now?
They are 33, 31, and 27.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they're proper adults.
Yes, I know. It took me a few years to figure that out. And I don't think I was, hovering over them. But, they joke with me, it's okay to cut the apron strings now. It's okay to let us go. And I say to them, it's not that I didn't ever have faith in you. I just like being around you. And I like hanging out with you. And I even up until the last few years would kind of plan my weekends around what they were doing. So what y'all doing? What's anybody want to hang out? And then if they were busy, then I would do something. So friends and other loved ones it's okay. It's okay to, let the kids go live their life. So I'm better at it now.
Because you love them, right? I have only one daughter, and she went to school. She's still in university in Montreal, so way far away. And you know that the goal is to have them launch and be independent and have confidence and solve problems. So, yay, that's a tick in, the mothering checkbox. But the other hand, you love them so much. Like, it's, again, always a very delicate interaction. It's not like you want to protect them from the world and not have them move away. It's that you love them.
Exactly. And I think they know that now. And I'm giving myself some grace in that too. Because I do believe I wasn't meddling or hovering to be annoying and still trying to parent them. I just That's what brings me joy in my life, is being around my family. And as often as I can do it, that makes me happy. So, when you think about what's your perfect moment in time, it's sitting around the dinner table with all my kids and loved ones and just going, this is this is what it's all about. This is all I need.
Yeah. My mom died a few years ago, and my mother, Annabelle, and I were, this like amazing triad for many years. And I remember those sitting at the dinner table or watching her braid my daughter's hair or, helping me make a recipe that she loved to make. And I think what I want to talk about is, our children learn how to treat elders by watching us, right? So, I think my daughter was good with old people when many of her friends had, their grandparents lived, either in a different country or they lived away. There's this we don't have kind of the familial home in a way maybe we used to. And where am I going with this question, Linda? I think what I'm wondering is, are your kids, obviously they're going to be good with elders, but are you able to talk about things like aging and, your dad's already passed. And so they've had that experience of, losing someone they love. But, there's so much we learn from our parents and our grandparents about life on earth. And I'm wondering what your parents have taught your children.
My parents have been a big part of my kids' lives, and I'm so grateful for that. As I said, my parents immigrated from Denmark, so I didn't have the opportunity to grow up with my grandparents. I love them all dearly, and I saw them a number of times over the years. My parents would go back to Denmark and take turns going with two of the four kids every few years, and then sometimes they would come visit. But we didn't grow up together, so we didn't have that experience. And I'm very grateful that my kids did. And I was a working mom too. So I was fortunate in that I had my husband's parents, who are wonderful and lovely and have helped shape my kids too, and my parents. So I had four people to call if I needed to go to work and there was a sick child or something. They were always there. We spent lots of times together. Once they became adults too, I think they turned to my parents for advice and things they may not have even talked to me about, and their dad, which I fully support. I think it's a very special relationship. And my oldest son, he lived with my mom and dad for 4 years because I grew up in the shadow of the University of Calgary. So they still had the family home. So he moved in there, and I get goosebumps now just thinking about it. What a special gift for him to have that one-on-one time, just the three of them for those 4 years. And then my daughter was there for 1 year too, before she came home as well. But they've been such a big part of their life. And I think, when they can offer advice in a different way, there's that parent-child relationship, which is strong and wonderful. But sometimes there's still, they want to live their own way and be independent, and advice from a grandparent, I think, can just land a little bit differently. So
yeah, as you get older, you get this surprise gift of wisdom that has value. Yeah. Did your I want to talk about women and aging, and did your mom, like my mom she wasn't very good at here's what's going to happen to your body when you're a teenager, and here's what's going to happen when you move into middle age. I had no lived experience with that. She was not good for that kind of wisdom. Was your mom? And can we talk a little bit about, if you're okay with it, perimenopause and the idea that, there's all these transitions in a woman's life, and many of which until quite recently were never, ever talked about.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. My experience might be, I'm not saying it's unique, but it might be different than some people. Just by, I don't even know how I got there. I guess just personal choice. I stayed on birth control probably a lot longer than is recommended. It was on a very low dose, but I just chose that was my comfort, and that's made me feel better to have that hormone. And so I stayed on it for a while, but I got to a point where I was talking to my gynecologist, and she was lovely, and she's still my gynecologist today. And what I appreciate, what I'm getting to, is I appreciate that her goal was to walk me through it based on what I wanted. And she said, this is what research shows, this is what I believe. These are the options that you could look at. Let's work on this together. So it was very gradual. I should say it was gradual after the hit the brick wall, because there was a time where she'd been leading up to it and talking to me about it and saying, you might want to consider making the switch, as you go through menopause. Because I think I was late in going through menopause. It was a little hard to detect with some of my blood work, and just wasn't sure if I was in it, through it, where I was. So one day when my pills ran out, in all my ignorant wisdom, which I rarely do, I always lean on doctors and I appreciate them. I just decided not to start taking the pill anymore. I just stopped cold turkey. I'm like, it's good to take less medication. I'll just stop. If that's what women go through, it was awful. It was so awful. I was soaking the bed in sweats. I had mood alterations. It was horrible. I had every symptom you can think of. And I finally went to see the gynecologist, and she just looked at me. Don't do that again. We can walk you through this very gently. There's ways that we can do this. So then I listened to her, and we did some hormone replacement therapy, and I just went back to normal. And it's just been gradual since then. Like, I just haven't had symptoms. I just had that one short period for, I can't remember if it was a few weeks or a couple months.
I'm sure it felt like a lifetime.
But I guess I can say that I can identify with how difficult it is. It was really eye-opening, because I wasn't sure what it felt like, what the transition would be like, right? It's some night sweats. Yeah. No, this was off the charts, a discomfort, and not sustainable.
How great that we're talking about this now so that our daughters are informed.
Especially the emotional component too, right? Is that we may not understand that really impacts your mental well-being. How you feel obviously impacts your mental well-being. If you're not sleeping at all and you feel awful, but you can go into depression, you can behave in ways that you wouldn't imagine and snap at people. And it's not just a joke. It's not just a meme. It's real. And it's very difficult for a lot of women to navigate. So to your point, yeah, maybe we didn't talk about it as much with our moms and our parents, but that we can talk openly about it now is important. Why is it different than, when you're young and you first get your period? We should talk about that so that your daughters aren't scared when that happens. And same thing, taking vitamins, taking medication. These should be open conversations, because there are ways that we can help people through their health challenges. And so if you're informed and you're knowledgeable, then you can make better decisions with your doctor.
And planning for, a long life to be as healthy as possible. I mean, your mom, you said 92?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's doing great. She moves a little slower, but that's okay. If I'm 92 and still going down to play cards twice a day, and she's very sharp. She's a card shark.
Aha.
So, yeah. She tries to teach me, but it involves math. So I'm like, no, I don't want to play. I don't like math. I don't like numbers.
Isn't that funny? I'm a word person, not a number person. I wonder if that's, yeah. Love words. Thanks for listening, and I hope you are enjoying what you're hearing. If you are, please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It would mean a lot. Do you and your mom talk about well, I mean, I don't mean to be a downer, but like end of life and we had Janine Violini was on the show in October, and she talked about how important it is to talk about, your life, and I love you and say that every day. And also, and when I'm gone, here are the things you need to know so that people aren't caught totally off guard by never have had a conversation because they were afraid of it. So do you talk with your mom about the impermanence of life and, what she might want? And not to be a downer, but it is, I think it's another way we can learn from our parents and teach our children.
I think so too. And I have had those thoughts. I mean, my mom's 92. I want her to live forever because I can't imagine not having her in my life. She said she's going to live to be 100. So I'm like, okay, well, at least get to 100, but we'll negotiate after that. 105. But we do talk about it. She's talked a little bit. She's starting more the last couple of years, starting more about that. I do think I would like some kind of service, like a celebration of life. And I do think I would like this song or that song. So we're starting, and I'm not uncomfortable talking about it because it's reality. And we went through it with my dad, although he passed during COVID, even though it wasn't from COVID, it was other health issues. But so we weren't able to have a gathering. And I'm not sure that he wanted a big gathering anyway, but just to bring family together. We did it virtually and had everybody on screens from all over the place. But with her, I think she's thinking more about it. But in terms of leaving that legacy, so when they immigrated here, my mom wrote to her mom and her family every week. So she has a suitcase full of letters that her mom kept. And she hasn't kept every single one of them, but she's kept a lot of them. And we're in the process of translating them and writing them down. She's hesitant sometimes because it's a lot of work and she has to translate it, and then I'll write it down. And some of it's pretty basic stuff. And I said, but that's a slice of your life that gives us a view of what your life was like. Because it'll say, well, we bought a station wagon this week. And, it's just the basic stuff that she wanted to share with her mom and include her mom in their life here in Canada. So that, I think, is legacy for me. And the other thing that you mentioned about maybe sharing it with my own kids is, since my dad has passed and I've been through the experience of missing someone so deeply and just wishing I could turn back time and get him back and hold his hand and learn from him. And I don't know how to approach it because I don't want to say, well, someday I won't be here. So let's appreciate these moments, because I believe that they will. But since I've experienced it, I keep thinking of I want them to feel really at peace with the relationship that we've had, that I've been so grateful to them and that I've loved every minute with them. So anything that might happen to me in life, I know they'll be so sad and devastated, but that I hope they can pull from it all the good that they can, because we've just had such a great relationship with all three of my kids. And I think that's what I keep trying to do with my dad. So yeah, I miss him so much, but I keep reminding myself of what a gift I had in this wonderful, caring, hardworking family man. And so I took the grief support program after my dad passed, which is available here in Alberta, which I recommend if it's often a wait list, unfortunately, but it is so helpful to talk about that. But just really knowing that there's so much that you had in that relationship that you can still hold on to. And that kind of makes it bittersweet, that, when that pain hits, the pain is so great because the love was so great. But then I remind myself of all the gifts and how he helped me in life. And right after he passed, I was with my youngest son. I remember us standing outside on the driveway and saw a rainbow. And I said, I'm just worried that I'm not going to remember his words and everything that he taught me and all the lessons that he taught me over the years and all his wisdom. And my young son, who's so wise, he was 22 at the time, said, but he's always with you. He shaped who you are. So everything he taught you and said to you is part of you. So profound, but I believe that, and I hold on to that.
I love that you saw a rainbow as you were having that conversation.
And then we walked 2 steps to get to the car and turned around to look at the rainbow one more time, and it was gone.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in signs and omens. Yeah.
That that was my dad stepping in.
That was really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and bringing up that idea of legacy, which, as we're moving into this age and stage of our lives, as, becoming this surprise wise woman with, maybe things we have to share. So you finished up at your television career, anchoring the news for you were in television for 36 years, which is a really great run. And then I know you're beginning this new career. What happened? Can you talk a little bit about that pause in the middle and how you moved from being, when you were high visibility, you were beloved, you had you were kind of top of the pops in the newsroom, a very active social environment, and then to wake up that first day and be like, what shall I do today that's purposeful?
I have lots of thoughts around that because it's been a lot, but in such a good way, a good realization. And I had been thinking about what the next phase of life looked like for the last few years. And every time I'd go in to see my boss about, extending a contract or staying on a few more years, and they have been, I'm so grateful. All my leaders and managers have been really great to me over the years, and given me lots of opportunities. And I kept thinking 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years. So I kept stretching it out, just envisioning what does it look like on the other side. And thank goodness I always loved the job. And I often say to people, I'm so grateful because I never had a day driving to work where I didn't love my job. I had moments, absolutely. I absolutely had moments where I was like, I'm terrible at this job. That wasn't a good interview. That was too this, too that. I had an emotional moment. Story hit me too hard. Some days you just don't feel like going to work. So there's days where I felt like not working, but I never hated my job. So I'm very grateful about that. But I'd still been thinking about what does it look like on the other side. And, I have a partner in my life, a loved one that I've been with now for coming up on 7 years, who I adore. And he has a lot more flexibility in his life. So then I started thinking, maybe you open the door to new opportunities that we can travel more and do more things and to spend the time with my mom and my kids if they start to have grandkids. So all these things were in my mind. What does it look like after that? Even though I loved the job. So that seed had been planted. So when I stepped away, it was hard, but I felt good. I felt like I could put it in a good place. And my good friend, Gord Gillies, who who was my on-air anchor co-host for so many years and is still such a dear friend of mine. I met with him before I was making the decision. He said, we had a good run, kid. Like you could put a bow on it, 36 years. That's great. And you will never lose that. Hold on to that. But there's a whole world out there outside of what you've been doing that could open some new opportunities. So I felt good about it. And even though it's bittersweet and you miss the friends and the viewers and the day-to-day work that was so interesting and engaging, I think I was ready. So that helped a lot. Plus, I always thought I won't be that person who says, I can't retire. Like, what is retirement? I don't know. I knew I would be involved in something and dabbling in something, that I wouldn't just be sitting there going, what do I do with my day? I'm a busy person. I can do things around the house. I can visit people. I can volunteer. I would not get bored being retired and not having to work. So that's what I did for the most part that first year, was just enjoy it and really love not knowing what day of the week it was. And if I go take my mom to a doctor's appointment, then she said, let's go for lunch. Sure, let's go for lunch. Can I come up to your suite? Do you need help with anything? Or meet my partner for a walk at lunch, because he has a border collie who has to be walked 5 times a day. So I'll meet you for the noon walk. So I really enjoyed that. And then, frankly, at some point you start looking at the money that you have going out and the money that you have coming in. And you think, okay, I probably need to do a little bit of something. So I'm now creating some baseline of thinking about what I want to do and then building from there. So that's tapping into some of the things that I really loved as part of my job as an anchor, which is the community engagement and moderating panels, hosting events, emceeing, being out in the community, learning about organizations and their causes and helping be their voice. So I'm doing more of that. And then the opportunity was presented to me by my friends who are part of Chorus. I was part of Chorus with Global. So Chorus Radio asked if I'd be interested in tapping into some of the people that I've met over the years and being part of the Calgary community and a voice of Calgary and do an interview show. So that's what I'm doing now in a radio show on QR Calgary, which is 770 AM, and then it's podcast as well. And it's called the Spotlight Hour with Linda Olsen. And it is about spotlighting stories, interesting, fun things happening in the city and people. So I usually have a theme around it. And sometimes I think about all the people that I've met, and there's people that I want on the show. And then I tailor a theme around that. Or I find a theme of something that interests me, and then I find the right people to speak to it. And I'm really enjoying it again. So even though I said I enjoyed that period where I was kind of retired and not doing so much on a schedule, this is exercising that muscle again, that I get to talk to people again and listen and share their stories and learn something new. Let's talk about brain health. And learning something new, because I've also learned a lot about, I emceed an event last year about brain health for women. And it's not just repetition. So here's a simple example. It's not just playing cards, but learning something new. So learn a new card game or challenge yourself in other ways. So I've been learning something new, as I mentioned to you, I think off camera, about a young woman who's fabulous at Chorus Radio, who's been helping me learn all the buttons in radio because I didn't do editing before as an anchor. I just hadn't learned the skill set. So this has been all new for me to do, the booking the guests and doing the interviews and doing all the editing myself. And she's been very patient with me and teaching me the ropes. So, but that feels good, right? I'm turning 62 and I'm like, I'm learning something new, and I'm by no means an expert, but I'm getting better in something new that I've learned. And I think that's good for me emotionally, career-wise, and just brain health too.
Yeah, and you get to be curious. It's almost like you have your own magazine. That's how I think about Secret Heart. It's like I get to, research and talk to people that I'm curious about. Yeah. Anyway, good luck to you. That sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
The Spotlight Hour with Linda Olsen. One of the things I ask people is about books they've read. So books that have had an impact to you, and maybe just share a few titles, and if you want to talk about why.
Sure. I'll share a couple things with you. First of all, I don't have a great memory. And there I go. I'm ignoring my mother's advice. Don't say that.
You should play the card games.
That's right. My mother's advice was to say positive things about yourself. Say, at the moment, I don't remember that, but I'm sure I will eventually remember that. But I'm in a book club, and this book club has been together for 30 years. They just had their 30th anniversary, and I've been part of it for about 17 years. And we read a book every month. So you think of all the books that I've read, and many of them I've just adored and fallen in love with. But if you ask me to remember titles, I have to go look at my bookshelf and remind myself. A few that do come to mind, and the reasons are, and if I kind of lump them all together, the reasons are what sticks out for me more so than theme, I think, and what I've learned about life and messages that would or imprint on me, is the writing itself. The beautiful lyrical writing. That's what jumps out at me. So the Book of Longings, I think that's what it's called. And it's fictional, obviously. A young woman, I think she's about 15 years old. Her name's Anna, and she eventually marries Jesus. And I started reading it and thinking, oh, this is going to be a bit challenging, just because the language seemed like it was from the Bible. Like it was just a little difficult to muddle through. But then something turned, and it just became so beautiful and so lyrical. And there is a powerful message to it. It's about women's voices not being heard, right? And she wanted to be a writer, so she'd find all these ways to make paper or papyrus or whatever they call it at the time, and try and write and share her stories. So it's beautifully written. And the other one, the other two, actually, my partner, he's very well read. He's lived all over the world, traveled all over the world, very well read. Um, he recommended these two, which was Breath, and it's an Australian author, and it's about two young men and their coming of age in the surfing community, and the older adult that they get to know and how he kind of leads them on adventures. But it's so beautifully written. What's the author's name? Tim Winton, I think. That's called Breath. And then the third one is A Year in Provence, and that's a classic. And I had not read that, and my partner said, "You haven't read A Year in Provence?" And it's lovely too. So those would be my recommendations, but I probably have more in all my lists.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's funny when I'm in a long-term book club too, and when you actually look back or try to and identify what you've read, it's kind of rewarding actually to
Yeah.
think I've read all that. Yeah, it has been just a delight talking to you about how you've lived this life. It feels like you're very, very much following what you know to be true for Linda Olsen, and I think that can only the truer we are with ourselves, the more light we shine in the world, and that can only be a good thing. So I'm so grateful you said yes, and good luck with the radio career and just life. Now moving into this wise woman, partner, traveling, maybe grandchildren on the horizon, and time with your beautiful mom. Yeah.
Thank you, Carrie. And what a pleasure for me. I'm just so happy to do this, and I'm happy for you. I've long admired you, and just to reconnect this way, I think is wonderful. And that you're sharing people's stories like this. I think, whatever audience we're talking to in both our mediums, I think it's making a difference in the world. You just put it out there, and you don't know whose life you might touch. And it's all about making the world a better place. And I know that's easy to say, but maybe just our own little corner of the world, we can help someone.
Yeah, I completely agree. Limited sphere of influence and do the best you can.
Yeah.
What was it your dad said? Be kind.
Just be good to each other every day. And it's pretty simplistic, but I think what he was very respectful, and he just didn't get. I mean, he had his moments. He was a dad, and we're kids, and we all have our moments in life. But like, he was very grounded. He was very respectful. So honest, like honest to a fault. He didn't really even understand sarcasm, and people would be sarcastic, and he'd get his feelings hurt because he didn't understand why they were saying that. But just really a kind and genuine person. So for him to say, just be good to each other, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. In his younger years, he wasn't in particularly religious, like religion, but spiritual, I think, and realized that this is our moment, this is our time while we're here on earth. We don't know what happens next. So let's just be good to each other every day. So I try to live that.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you so much, Linda. A delight. And it was lovely getting to know a bit of your father, too. Just be good to each other.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about my journey and my family. I appreciate it. And thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please tell your friends.